Yeah.
Want me to share it to you or?
Yes, please. Okie doke. Hi. Hi. Up on top is right where you belong. No, maybe. I mean, it's an electric kettle that heats water. Yeah. No, I don't have any coffee to make it. I may have tea, maybe, but I had it last week. You weren't here last week, were you? In person?
No, I went to Florida on Thursday.
Oh my gosh, that's right. Crazy.
First 2 days of shit coming.
Mm. Yeah, we had some hot chocolate, and we'll have some more hot chocolate tomorrow. Unless my second period drinks it all, but I have 2 boxes, so they should.
You should make the hot chocolate.
It is 10 times better, but I don't have a way to make it with milk here.
You can't just heat it up in
Mm-mm. I think it would really mess up the kettle. It's not meant for anything except for water.
I got you. I'm like really you're so cute.
Yeah, it's not like it's definitely better with milk, but for a quick and easy thing. This stuff is good. Hi. Uh-huh. Yes. How are you? Oh wow. Which one do you work at? Okay. Okay. Oh.
And I do work weekends, so.
You do work weekends?
Yeah. Sometimes I go on the help people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Oh, keep that in mind. Where is everybody? Will come along. Sound. Tell them you gotta stand up strong. Ooh. Up on top is right where you belong. Where is this? Where is it? Okay, there we go. Hello. Hi, how's it going? Good. I was like, Joe Nelson.
It's so weird because I hear the teachers call Mr. Grant Lucas.
Yeah.
So I did that one day.
Lucas.
We were like getting mad at each other.
Mr. Gray, yeah. What does he look like?
Like a Rob or something. Like some generic name.
Rob, Peter.
Ron.
Yeah, I see that. Yep.
Gilbert.
Gilbert.
That.
Gilbert Gray.
Yeah.
That's a nice name though, Gilbert Gray. What do I look like?
I would say your name fits.
It fits.
Hey, Ms. McClellan.
Hey.
Yeah.
It is my first time. It was fine. It was pretty low key. I didn't really do a whole lot. How was yours?
Best I can sum it up. I watched a lot of movies and I got really depressed.
Oh no. Well, that part's not good.
But it's not.
No. The movies was really good. It just got me thinking. I'm like, well, dang, America did a lot of horrible stuff. Because I watched this movie called American Me, where it started with this Hispanic gangster. And I'm like, oh, crap. I forgot this during a time where immigrant came in and white people, American white people, did not like it.
Yeah.
But nobody knows. Yeah, I see some posts or something.
It was just so horrifying to watch. I'm like, God dang, America got some bad blood.
Just throws it away.
All right. Present, virtually present, virtually present. No Cece yet. No Zane. Randall's here. Radney. Okay. So.
Oh, do you have hot chocolate?
Tomorrow, because we'll start unless Christian drinks it all.
Oh yeah.
We'll start listening to Moby Dick tomorrow. But we're gonna do a little bit more intro work into it today. Okay. I didn't do a whole lot of intro the first time, but they gave me a lot more stuff in between last week when nothing worked and this week when things will work, God willing. So the first thing we're gonna do, just to kind of give y'all some background, is watch a short little video from the TED Talk people about what Moby Dick is about and also like why it's important. It is about a whale. It is about a whale and about the guy who, the Captain Ahab, like earlier, Moby Dick ate his leg off. Yeah. And so
he's the dude in the car commercial, right?
in the car commercial?
Yeah.
It's 11 o'clock.
Thank you.
They're trying to find a parking spot.
I don't know if I know this commercial. I'll have to look it up. Is there Captain Ahab Geico?
Yes.
I'm gonna oh, here comes Cece. I have Geico and I still feel like it's very expensive. I'm gonna share my screen with you guys and we're gonna watch this Geico commercial with Captain Ahab. Oops, sorry.
So what are you waiting? Sarah, did you know Geico could save you hundreds on car insurance and a whole lot more? So what are you waiting for? Captain Ahab to help you find a parking spot?
Fire, she blow! Loading zone. All hard to starboard. Seriously, because it. All ahead. Steady. No. Thunder racer to the northern lot where there be parking spaces as big as whales.
Why was it this one? Are you there?
That is fun. Let me go fix this attendance before we move on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to watch is a video about what Moby Dick is about, but also why it's important, why we still read it, why some people practically worship this book. I'm not one of them. I've never finished reading it, but it's massive. It was originally over 900 pages and now it's over 600. So it's a lot, but clearly some people think it's really important. So we're going to watch this first. And I do think this is pretty interesting. I love a TED Talk.
A mountain separating two lakes. A room papered floor to ceiling with bridal satins. The lid of an immense snuff box. These seemingly unrelated images take us on a tour of a sperm whale's head in Herman Melville's Moby Dick. On the surface, the book is the story of Captain Ahab's hunt for revenge against Moby Dick, the white whale who bit off his leg. But though the book features pirates, typhoons, high-speed chases, and giant squid, you shouldn't expect a conventional seafaring adventure. Instead, it's a multi-layered exploration of not only the intimate details of life aboard a whaling ship, but also subjects from across human and natural history, by turns playful and tragic, humorous and urgent. The narrator guiding us through these explorations is a common sailor called Ishmael. Ishmael starts out telling his own story as he prepares to escape the damp and drizzling November in his soul by going to sea. But after he befriends the Pacific island Queequeg and joins Ahab's crew aboard the Pequod, Ishmael becomes more of an omniscient guide for the reader than a traditional character. While Ahab obsesses over revenge and first mate Starbuck tries to reason with him, Ishmael takes us on his own quest for meaning throughout the whole universe, not excluding its suburbs. In his telling, life's biggest questions loom large, even in the smallest details. Like his narrator, Melville was a restless and curious spirit who gained an unorthodox education working as a sailor on a series of grueling voyages around the world in his youth. He published Moby Dick in 1851, when the United States whaling industry was at its height. Nantucket, where the Pequod set sail, was the epicenter of this lucrative and bloody global industry, which decimated the world's whale populations.
My heavens.
Unusually for his time, Melville doesn't shy away from the ugly side of this industry, even taking the whale's perspective at one point, when he speculates on how terrifying the huge shadows of the ships must be to the creature swimming below. The author's first-hand familiarity with whaling is evident over and over again in Ishmael's vivid descriptions. In one chapter, the skin of a whale's penis becomes protective clothing for a crewman.
What a bummer.
Chapters with titles as unpromising as Cistern and Buckets become some of the novel's most rewarding, as Ishmael compares bailing out a sperm whale's head to midwifery, which leads to reflections on Plato. Tangling whale lines provoke witty reflections on the ever-present perils of entangling all mortals. He draws on diverse branches of knowledge, like zoology, astronomy, law, economics, mythology, and teachings from a range of religious and cultural traditions. The book experiments with writing style as much as subject matter. One monologue, Ahab challenges Moby Dick in Shakespearean style. Towards thee I roll, thou all-destroying but unconquering whale. To the last I grapple with thee. From hell's heart I stab at thee. For hate's sake I spit my last breath at thee. One chapter is written as a play script, where members of the Pequod's multi-ethnic crew chime in individually and in chorus. African and Spanish sailors trade insults, while a Tahitian seaman longs for home. Chinese and Portuguese crew members call for a dance, and one young boy prophesies disaster. In another chapter, Ishmael sings the process of decanting whale oil in epic style, as the ship pitches and rolls in the midnight sea and the casks rumble like landslides. A book so wide-ranging has something for everyone. Readers have found religious and political allegory, existential inquiry, social satire, economic analysis, and representations of American imperialism, industrial relations, and racial conflict. As Ishmael chases meaning and Ahab chases the white whale, the book explores the opposing forces of optimism and uncertainty, curiosity and fear that characterize human existence, no matter what it is we're chasing. Through Moby Dick's many pages, Melville invites his readers to leap into the unknown, to join him on the hunt for the ungraspable phantom of life.
Okay, so that's I like that video because it kind of shows us that Moby Dick isn't just about this guy chasing after a whale. It's got so much more going on. Even I thought it was so interesting the way they talk about, like, it mentions astrology and mythology and economics and philosophy and, you know, just all of these different things, even like ancient Greek philosophy. It kind of incorporates so many things and is it's got characters from like all different cultures, and so it's really about so much more than just this guy's revenge on a fish, you know. So that's a lot. And how do you go about whittling it down into a play? Well, I'm going to kind of go through this a little bit and then we'll do a different thing. Jonah does kind of relate to it. And actually on Wednesday, we'll listen to just like a little brief thing and it makes a connection to the story of Jonah, which that's kind of cool. So it contains what author Nathaniel Philbrick calls nothing less than the genetic code of America, all the promises, problems, conflict, and ideals that contributed to the outbreak of a revolution in 1775, as well as the Civil War in 1861, and continue to drive this country's ever-contentious march into the future. And this is too true. The story of a hell-bent captain leading his crew to certain destruction has captured the American essence in a way that's still alarmingly relevant over 160 years later since its original publication. Basically saying that all of the stuff in this book kind of encompasses what the American journey is all about, which we know a little bit about because we've been studying American literature this year, but like progressing and overcoming obstacles, all that stuff is really like tied up in what America is about. So it's a story of space, vengeance, expansion, and weight set to the tune of America's past, present, and future. It's the story of a man who removes himself from the laws of nature and plants himself in his own universe. I'm just like kind of briefly going through this. At the time of its publication, it was regarded as a critical miss, meaning that like it didn't make a splash, no pun intended, when it was first published. Like people weren't really interested. And it must be conceded still that sections of the epic can hardly be considered page turners. They did mention in the video that there's one section where one of the characters like sings an epic poem basically about the process of decanting whale oil. And I gotta imagine that's not a huge page turner. I'm not interested in the process of decanting whale oil. And unless you're a whaler, I just think it's not super relevant. I don't know. I haven't read that part of Moby Dick. Maybe so. And then I didn't read that part, so I don't know how to decant it. But scholars can see now that it's a repository not only of American history and culture, but also of the essentials of Western literature. They can see that. Scholars can see that. They what?
It's like a play.
Yeah, it's an audio play. So this is from the perspective of the guy who helped adapt it, who also directed the play that we're going to start listening to. Yeah, this year. They talk about the Leviathan, which if y'all will remember when we went through like the nautical terms.
Eli Jones, please report to the main office for dismissal.
Leviathan is basically like a big sea monster. And so sometimes in the play, they'll refer to Moby Dick as the Leviathan. So they're saying a play script that resonates with the combined force of Melville and Shakespeare is a daunting task for any researcher or theater maker. The level of scholarship on both individuals would take several careers to fully digest. It's important to remember that no conclusive adaptation of Moby Dick is possible, so we must seek for the truth in the contemporary trends and themes that speak most prevalently to our community today. Also, there's a lot of speculation over the whale as a metaphor for God, so keep that in mind while we're listening to it. But one reason this story resonates through the ages is that its metaphor is larger than one singular interpretation. So the guy here, this is like a pretty hardcore quote, says, "There's nothing fundamentally wrong with people. Given a story to enact that puts them in accord with the world, they will live in accord with the world. But given a story to enact that puts them at odds with the world, as yours does, they will live at odds with the world. Given a story to enact in which they're lords of the world, they will act like lords of the world. And given a story to enact in which the world is a foe to be conquered, they will conquer it like a foe. And one day, inevitably, their foe will lie bleeding to death at their feet, as the world is now." Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna kind of move on to is that there's a big connection between Melville and Shakespeare, which I kind of like hinted at the other day. In fact, let me go ahead and skip forward to this part. They have a few things in common, and Melville discovered Shakespeare while he was writing Moby Dick, which influenced his decisions as a writer. So this is cool because we have all read some Shakespeare before, and we kind of know what his whole format is and everything, and why he's still regarded as probably the greatest English author. They both offer vigorous discourse for artists concerning levels of artistry or genius. Neither of them knew the true measure of their success during their lifetimes, which is sad. They were both products of and responding to the times in which they lived, and taking all of that into account, they're inexorably linked through the centuries through their desires and goals as an artist. So I'm going to kind of skim through this next little section, and after we talk about that, I'm actually just going to give you guys some time to finish your short story reflections. But this talks a good bit about both King Lear and Macbeth, which we've never read. And a little bit about Macbeth, which we will read, or sorry, Hamlet, which we will read next year. So I'm just going to kind of give you like a very brief summary of both King Lear and Macbeth. So in King Lear, obviously Lear is the king, hence the title. I know, it's a spoiler alert. He's got 3 daughters, and he's like nearing the end of his life. And he's like, okay, I'm going to call all my daughters to me and like test their love for me, basically, and I'll decide who to leave what, and like to leave in charge of the kingdom based on their answers. He's got 3 daughters, and his youngest one is actually his favorite. He's like, she'll give me the right answer and I'll just leave everything to her. So he asks his first daughter, how much do you love me? And she's like, oh my God, I love you more than anything. Like, I basically worship you. And he's like, cool. And then he asks the second daughter how much she loves him. And she's like, more than the first daughter, for sure. I love you like times infinity. And he's like, all right, those are both good answers. And then he asks the youngest daughter, his favorite, and he's like, she's going to have a good answer. And her answer is basically, I love you as much as a daughter should love their father. And like, it would be a lie to say anything more than that. And he was like, I hate your answer. I'm disowning you and splitting the kingdom between your sisters. So she just didn't give him the answer that he wanted to hear. So he disowns her. But both of those other daughters were horrible people that were only saying things to try to get the inheritance. And they didn't really love him at all. And so he's like, okay, well, I've not got much longer to live. I'm going to go live with one of them for a month and then the other one for a month. And when they get there, when he gets to each of them, they like treat him like crap. The second one runs away so she doesn't have to see him. There's plenty of other plot, but like in the end, he goes insane. I think he loses his eyesight, if I remember right. And then he finally like finds the youngest daughter, who wound up, I think, the Queen of France. And she's like, she takes care of him, and then everyone dies because it is a Shakespearean tragedy. So literally everyone dies. So that's the story of King Lear. And then Macbeth, which is one of my faves. That is the one with the witches. Yes. Double, double, toil and trouble. That's where that came from. Macbeth is a soldier who happens upon these 3 witches in the woods. And they're like, oh, Macbeth, you're going to be the king. And he's like, well, I don't really know how I'm going to be the king. I'm not in line for the throne. And they're like, trust me, you're going to be the king. And the other guy that's with him, he says, they say your sons will be kings. And they're like, well, I don't really know how that's going to work out because we're not related, but okay. and then he gets a promotion that puts him like closer into line for the throne. He's like, oh, is that actually maybe gonna happen? And then he tells his wife about it. And his wife is my favorite character in Shakespeare because she is an utter savage. And he tells her, these witches said I was going to be king. And she's like, you are going to be king. We're going to murder the king now. And he's like, I don't know if we should murder the king. And she's like, no, man up and murder the king. And this is, I'm serious. She's such a savage. Like one of my favorite lines of hers. She's like basically telling him, she's like, you said that you were going to kill him and now you're trying to back out of it. And that's not honorable or whatever. And so she says, yeah. Or like he's in the position to like become the next one. Like he moves up enough in the ranks or whatever to where like if the king dies, he will be king. And the wife is like, you're backing out of what you said you do, and that's not cool. And she says, if I had a baby that I loved and nursed at my own breast, but I said that I would kill that baby, then I would bash its brains out against a wall because I'm a woman of my word. I'm like, she's pretty serious. She's really like, she wears the pants in that relationship for sure. And so they do kill the king. And the whole thing basically is about both of their actually like unstoppable ambition and how they're willing to like do anything to get to the position they want to be in. And I mean, like, things don't end well for him in the end. This is again a tragedy, so like most people die. But also the witches' prophecies all came true. There's a big question of like, were they self-fulfilling prophecies? Because like, would he have become the king if he didn't murder the king, and that kind of thing? It's a very like fate versus free will kind of thing. So we're just going to go briefly, and I'm going to kind of skip through a lot of this, but these connections, because it is very cool that he was so he discovered Shakespeare in the middle of writing this and was like, oh my gosh, I love Shakespeare now. I got to include all this Shakespeare stuff. And it also says that like the Moby Dick was intended to be read aloud, or that there are things in it that have to be heard. So that's really convenient because we are going to hear them. Where it's just 3 days of listening. It's an audio play, yeah. Theater in the dark. We don't get to read it now, but it's pretty cool. Like it's the way that it's, I don't have a script. I don't have a script of it, but okay. That's fair. I'm trying to think if we're doing any more plays this year, but I don't think we are. We have one more novel to do. Okay, so he says, reading Shakespeare, we know what it's like in any age to be alive. So it is with Moby Dick, a novel about a whaling voyage to the Pacific. Is also about America racing hellbent towards the Civil War and much more. The traits of genius can be shared across space and time, and this story rests upon the direct comparison between Lear and Ahab, with other hints of other characters and story arcs. So I think that this quote is really funny. I mentioned the other day that Herman Melville was like obsessed with Nathaniel Hawthorne, but they were also friends, sort of, and he like wrote letters to him. And he wrote, after he discovered Shakespeare in the middle of writing it, he said, "Dolt and ass that I am, I have lived more than 29 years, and until a few days ago, never made close acquaintance with the divine William. Ah, he's full of sermons on the mount and gentle eye, almost as Jesus." So immediately he's like really hero worshiping William Shakespeare. He is fangirling hard over William Shakespeare, which like, I get it, but like, Shakespeare, oh my gosh. It was his birthday the other day, his birthday and death day. And I didn't think about it until like halfway through the day. I'd have like, I don't know, made some kind of Shakespeare snack. I don't know what that would be, but I would have done something. A what? Oh, yeah. I mean, why not?
Two.
Shakespeare. Took me a minute there. His birthday and death day are supposedly on the same day. They don't know it for sure, but he was baptized as a baby on April 26th, and usually people were baptized 3 days after they were born. So yes, he was baptized. Today's his baptismal anniversary.
Yeah.
Okay, so Melville is very drawn to Shakespeare. And he says, if I magnify Shakespeare, it's not so much for what he did do as for what he did not do or refrain from doing. For in this world of lies, truth is forced to fly like a scared white doe in the woodlands, and only by cunning glimpses will she reveal herself, as in Shakespeare and other masters of the great art of telling the truth, even though it be covertly and by snatches. So basically, he's like, the reason I love Shakespeare is because he doesn't come right out and say the point of what he's trying to communicate, but like, it's communicated so well in the actions of the characters, which that's a really good reason to admire someone. Yeah, he definitely does. So that's what Melville is trying to do that as well. Shakespeare called upon the power of his audience's imagination to bring his worlds to life, and now Melville will do the same with his whaling voyage. A more immediate reaction to Ahab might yield a comparison to Macbeth's ambition, or Edgar, who's another character in King Lear, his values. But Melville is particularly attached to the characters in King Lear, and Ahab is better imagined as Lear with no final act. So like in the final act of King Lear, he like goes crazy, loses his sight, finds his daughter, and dies. So that does not happen in exactly the same way.
What is the original kingdom?
I think it's England.
How do you go from England to just somehow end up in France?
I don't know. Well, his daughter marries the Prince of France, I think.
The tragedy with the dude who's like in love with his mother, then he gets in love with his mother, and then he stabs his eyes. What's that called again?
Oedipus
Rex.
Oedipus Rex. Yeah.
That was a crazy movie.
Very messed up. And again, one of those things that's like, there was a prophecy that he was gonna marry his mother, and he's like, no way. And then he does all these things to avoid it and winds up actually doing it. So it's like, was that a self-fulfilling prophecy? I don't know. Yes. This word, I really love this word that they keep using here, monomania. Mono means one, and mania is like insanity. So basically what that means is that he is so focused on this one thing that everything else falls away. So for him, for Captain Ahab, it's the pursuit of the whale, and nothing else matters to him. I'm not going through every bit of this. So we're not going to look through this yet. But, oh, well, hang on. I like this. Ahab hated and denied the universe which had done him wrong, making him a demonic, not a tragic hero, less like Lear, more like a false Prometheus with destruction, not salvation in his heart. I like that quote. So we're not going to like read through this, but I like the comparison of like his last speech. That's King Lear's last speech. This is the middle one, is the one from the book, and then the one on the left is their version, what we'll hear. So you can even kind of tell that they've sort of adapted and modernized it a bit. So that's nice. There's another connection to Macbeth's pride and vanity to the last, and I wanted to follow Melville in producing an Ahab that, though cornered, is prideful to the last. In a sense, if he can't have it, then no one can. Lear may sense his own impending demise, but it's hard to tell since he's reverted to a childlike state, weeping over Cordelia, the good daughter's corpse. Lear is forced to touch his mistakes, but Ahab seems cut an act short before this decay creeps in, leaving the audience to only imagine Ahab's thoughts in those final moments. This is definitely like a little bit of a spoiler, but it's fine. This is not reconciliation with the whale or with the mouse in the universe, but it is a reconciliation of Ahab with Ahab, a fitting end to the literary embodiment of monomania, meaning like he's just got to be like good with the way his life is ending. He's not necessarily, he has to kind of like let go of everything else. There's some more possible connections, but he represents an improvement, a step in the evolution of the Shakespearean protagonist. There was a Moby Dick movie, and actually, some of y'all probably know that my favorite author is Ray Bradbury, and he got commissioned in the 50s or 60s, whenever it was made, to write the screenplay for it. And he had never read it, you know, heard all this stuff about how it's one of the greatest American novels and stuff, but he never read it. And he actually wrote a book, a memoir about the process of writing it, which is actually a really entertaining book. It's not like, and then I sat at my desk for 2 days and wrote nothing. It's about like living in Ireland and stuff when he was writing the screenplay. But in the end, he was like, it was like Herman Melville took over my body and like made me do it. I kind of like channeled him. So that's interesting. A final thought on Ahab. It should be noted that neither the book nor the play label Ahab as an emblem of no absolute order, nor is his story one of good versus evil. A White Whale is like the novel, not a mystery, but a play about a mystery, leaving Ahab's actions up to the audience for interpretation. Father Mapple gives us the key in his sermon on Jonah, which we'll hear on Wednesday. The perennial sense of injustice, the cry of Prometheus and Job as of Lear and Hamlet, was also Ahab's. Why did the innocent suffer? This was the inscrutable thing that Ahab hated. Ahab never penetrated the mystery, nor came to his full understanding of the meaning and suffering as did Job or Lear. But undoubtedly audiences today will see in Ahab what they've seen in Lear and the countless kings and captains that have come before and after them over the centuries, but see a closer version of themselves. This is the energy we wanted to tap into when bringing Moby Dick to life as live online audio theater. And of course with us, it's not exactly live, but close enough. So just for the record, tomorrow, tomorrow we will start listening. We'll listen to Act 1, and I'm gonna play it like pretty much as soon as we get in here because it is like 45 to 50 minutes. So both of the acts will take up a whole class, and I'm just letting you know that so that if you're a few minutes late tomorrow, that's what like we'll already be going with it. So just FYI, we'll listen to Act 1 tomorrow. Wednesday we'll listen to the sermon, which is only about 15 minutes. And then Thursday we'll finish up with Act 2, and Friday we'll wrap up. And then next week we'll start our new stuff. Gatsby stuff. Actually, are we doing Gatsby immediately? I can't remember. We might have like a week before we start Gatsby, but we have like 16 minutes left, and I just want to give you guys the time because only a couple of you have turned in the short story reflection from the other day, the modernist short story reflections. That's 4 questions. You did that? That's you too? Who we got here? Alyssa, James. They're my 2. All right, so everyone except Alyssa and James still has something to turn in because they're due today. So you're killing it. You're crushing it. All right, I'm gonna let you guys go to work on that. Well, actually, you can, like, if you want to stay and work, you can, and turn in when you get done. But I'm gonna go ahead and turn my stuff off, and y'all just holler at me if you need me.
Peace.